Welcome to r/slash Pettyrevenge, where OP becomes an expert hacker. Our next Reddit post is from Claude Platypus. This is my freelance revenge story that happened about 8 years ago, and it was one of the first times I was ghosted without pay. I created a landing page for my client's Elven Symbol jewelry store. A bunch of esoteric BS, but I was young and trying to break into copywriting, so I took any deal that I could. We agreed on a pure performance deal, so I got nothing up front, but we settled on a 5% performance fee. Her WordPress store was really small, and I was aiming to get $300 to $800 out of it. But honestly, at some level, I would have been happy to just do it for practice in my portfolio. Long story short, I wrote the landing page and built it inside of her WordPress site. She started running some Facebook ads on it, and I was shocked to see that it was actually converting. She made $120 on day 1, $200 on day 2, $150 on day 3, $360 on day 4, etc. By the end of the month, that landing page brought in $6,000 in revenue. I honestly thought that I struck gold. $300 in royalties in the first month? I was gonna make bank from 2 days of work. Well, predictably, she disappeared the moment that I mentioned first invoice. 3 months go by. Nothing. No replies to emails, calls go unanswered, but she's still running ads. I can see all the sales coming in because I still have access to her website. Then, out of nowhere, I get a panicked message. "My site is down. Are you doing this? Please stop." Now, I had nothing to do with her store going down. It was probably just her cheap hosting. But after being ghosted for months while she made thousands of dollars off my work, I knew this could be my one and only shot at getting paid. So I decided to play along. But I had to be careful. I couldn't just admit in writing that I'm the hacker and threaten her to pay up. What if she went to the police and showed them the messages? Now, I knew I had to make her think that I was responsible, but not admit to anything at the same time. So I replied, "Sorry, but I'm not going to talk to you until you pay me what you owe me." This turned out to be the perfect level of vague. I never said I hacked her site. I never threatened to keep it down. I just looked suspicious AF. She immediately called me and asked me what I want. I told her I still have access to her website and Google Analytics, and I can see what she made off the landing page, and that I want what we agreed to, 5% of sales from that landing page. That ended up being just shy of $1,500. She said that she'll take care of it. We got off the call, I sent her the final invoice, and she wired the money immediately. She then messaged me with a payment confirmation from her bank and asked me to enable her website. It worked! I was shaking when I typed back this reply. "I had nothing to do with your website crashing. You should talk to your hosting provider." I never heard from her again. I think it was a YouTube lawyer explain blackmail, and don't take my word for this, I'm not a lawyer, but as I recall, you can't do a quid pro quo. You can't say, "If you pay me, then I will restore your website," because that's blackmail. But if you remove the reward for the payment and you say, "If you pay me, then who knows what'll happen," then that's actually legal. So apparently the trick to blackmail is to talk like some smug supervillain. "Well, I suppose if you paid me $1,000, I could look into it, but I can't make any promises." Our next Reddit post is from FJB. On a Monday night, I asked my manager if I could have my morning shift covered. He said, "No worries, the new girl is coming in to train, and there will be plenty of servers for the slow lunch rush." Sounded good to me. The next day, the owner, who has the patience of a caffeinated squirrel, messages me asking why I didn't show up. I told him exactly what my manager said. He said that the new girl isn't a real server yet, and the way he saw it, I missed my shift because I didn't have another waiter cover for me. So he suspended me for the week. I'm their best waiter. I'm never late, always on time, and I pull in the best reviews. Some Google reviews even list my name on them. But I just said, "All right, boss, see you in a week." So I did what any overworked employee would do. I slept in, watched movies, played disc golf, and hung out with my friends and girlfriend. It was the most relaxing week I've ever had. On Friday night, the owner calls me begging for help. They were so short-handed, they were practically using the dishwashers as waiters. He wanted me to come in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all while I was still on suspension. I told him that I hadn't learned my lesson yet and I couldn't possibly come in. When I came back the next week, everyone was very, very nice to me. Our next Reddit post is from ZZZ Top. There was a house in our area that was known for having really cool murals inside done by the previous tenant. Outside was pretty tame. She had a pre-built facade to make the house look like a cottage. Inside, it was all hand-done murals of Disney movies and fairy tales. The lady was an art teacher when she was younger, and later, she started one of those paint with wine type businesses, which she did well before fully retiring to just doing painting commissions and furniture decorating. She's always been nice to everyone, even when I was a butthole to her when she complained about the truck being too loud or speeding. We worked that out and we've been friends since. She had an agreement with the original landlord about the art. Since it wasn't outside, it wasn't going to be a problem. She's been living in that house since the mid-'80s with promises of getting the house in time. Unfortunately, the landlord passed away before anything was signed and his kids took over. One of the sons visited the house to inspect it with his daughter, and apparently they fell in love and wanted the art house for his daughter. My neighbor didn't have a lease, which made the fight harder, and they used the art on the walls as an excuse to kick her out. She was devastated, but she was able to buy a property that fits her needs at the last minute in another state that had a full art studio area on the first floor. She had the house cleaned out in a week. On the second week, she had people buff all the walls with sanders. All the murals from the front to the back were gone. They just looked like blotches of colors. My neighbor had hired my friend, who, ever the diligent painter, covered the entire wall in a new layer of primer. After the paint dried, he covered the walls with another layer of color to essentially kill the character of the house. He used the same boring colors, white with grays all over the house, and that terrible dark tone Pergo flooring. The wood paneling walls, trim, switch covers, outlet covers, counters, and cabinets were sprayed in the most depressing shade of gray. The house looked dead inside when I went in to check it out. It was weird not seeing all the murals. The front of the house was the last project. She agreed to give his landscaping friends the bushes in exchange for the labor of removing the cottage facade without breaking it. The landscaper basically ripped everything out and just dumped gravel and sand with a boulder for decoration. This weekend, I went to fix some problems at an old neighbor's house and noticed the house was still empty, and I asked the neighbor if he had seen anyone move in. He said earlier in the week there were some U-Hauls there, but none of them were unloaded, and that was the last time they remember seeing anyone there. I bet that daughter was in for a surprise when she saw the house get turned into a basic hellhole. Our next Reddit post is from Willett. Back in 1997, my stepdad was the operations manager at a company that did telecommunications work. He hired me to work at the company for the summer, but I ended up enjoying the work and made a career out of it. About 4 months into my employment at the company, the owner and my stepdad had a disagreement over something very trivial, and the owner fired my dad. Since he's my stepdad, we have different last names, and I didn't feel like I would get caught up in this issue. I had my own issues with this company as well. Mostly not being paid correctly and being denied benefits promised. I ended up working for another 18 months for the company before I left to work for a major telecommunications provider that we had done some work for. At the new company, I eventually took a position where I was responsible for hiring contractors, much like the company my dad and I worked for, to do construction. One day, I got a call out of the blue from the owner of the contractor company my stepdad used to work for. He wanted to see if he could get on my list of approved contractors and was hoping that we could discuss it over lunch. Typically, a project of this type would be $75,000 to $200,000. And I would do like 20 to 30 of these projects per year, so it could be a lucrative source of revenue for them. I agreed to a lunch date with the owner at a fancy restaurant that I always wanted to try. His pitch consisted of telling me what his company was capable of, how he valued his employees, and took good care of them. He mentioned the list of other companies that he'd done work for and the quality of the work. I mentioned that I used to work for his company, and he clearly didn't remember my name. I also asked if he remembered the guy who hired me, and he said that he did. When I mentioned that guy was my stepdad, the look of panic in his eyes set in. He clearly remembered my stepdad. I closed out the lunch meeting with a thank you for the food and an apology that my contractor list was full of more capable contractors, but I would keep him in mind if something were to change. I never heard back from him again. Ooh, I like this phrase from Sergeant Oddball in the comments. Be nice to the people you see on your way up. You'll see them again on your way down. I prefer be mindful of the butt you kick today because it may be the butt you have to kiss tomorrow. Our next Reddit post is from Executor of Judgment. By the way, this did not take place in America, so US labor laws don't apply here. This was a small team of 10 people that the manager was assigned to, myself included. I was the last person to be hired on the team. Everybody was my senpai, and on the first day I worked there, they called a team meeting after work. We log off our computers at 4:55 p.m., go to the meeting room, and we clocked out at 5:15 p.m. Every day like clockwork. I said, no problem, that's an extra 2.5 hours on the bi-weekly paycheck. And we didn't have to do any actual work except listen. When my first payday came, I saw my full 80 hours, but the extra 2.5 hours were nowhere to be found. So I asked a couple of the guys if they only got paid 80 hours too. They all confirmed it. We were not getting paid for those meetings. The shift ends, and once again, the manager called for the daily team meeting and to log off at 4:55 p.m., then head to the meeting room. I do so. And so I sit there for 5 minutes. As soon as it hits 5 p.m., I get up and say I need to be somewhere important, with everyone's eyes on me. The manager says, okay. I leave the room, clock out, and go home. The next day I do the same, and again, and again. The manager never stops me. Then the manager pulls me to the side one day and asks what's this important thing that I need to get to after work every day. And I tell him it's a personal matter and he leaves it at that. Pretty soon it catches on. The other guys start leaving right after me. And eventually, within a matter of days of me starting to leave at 5, everyone else started doing it too. The manager started scheduling the meetings for 4:40 p.m. All it took was one person to not take this garbage anymore. Our next Reddit post is from Filthy Mug. Some time ago, I reached out to someone working at a company that I was interested in, just to ask about the work culture. He'd leave me on scene or respond with one-word, vague replies like, yeah, or okay, clearly not interested in helping. Fast forward a few months, I saw that he was now on the job hunt. So I messaged him again with a casual, hi. Predictably, he ignored it. A day later, I followed up with, I see you're leaving X company. I might have an opening. Boom, instant reply, full of enthusiasm. Suddenly, he's writing long messages, answering my previous questions, and being oh so helpful. So I did the only logical thing. I blocked him immediately. This was the most petty thing I did my whole life, and it felt great. That was r/Pettyrevenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.